Welcome back to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in Ms. Marvel Episode 1. This show taps into something that's unique about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and is rarely explored. The superheroes are celebrities. They take selfies, they sign autographs, people get tattoos of them.
I don't want to make things awkward for you, but I do have to show you, boom!
So now we have Kamala Khan, who is the best representation of a Marvel fan on screen. She's one of us. She cosplays, makes YouTube videos, and is a total dork.
A cosplay competition for Carol Danvers at the greatest fan event of the year. My costume is near perfect, just pending the final flourish.
This show is going to be a lot of fun. The opening song is Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. Now the lyrics of the song are about a guy who is missing the person that he loves, and seeing the lights of the city makes him feel more alone. He's surrounded by people, and yet he feels loneliness. This is how Kamala feels all the time. She sees the lights of Manhattan across the Hudson, that home of the heroes, and wishes that she could be one of them. But instead, she lives here in Jersey City. Another way to put it is that she's blinded by the shining lights of her love for superheroes and can't focus on her current life problems. The Marvel logo has become a stop-motion animation that she's made. Now in the comics, she writes Captain Marvel fan fiction under the name Sloth Baby, and this hobby's been brilliantly reimagined for the moving pictures. Right now, she only has 2 subscribers, but in the real world, she would have doubled the size of lesser YouTube channels like Heavy Spoilers by now. This kind of stop-motion art project is also very similar to the ending credits of the Spider-Man home movies, which are always visualized as something that a kid could make or draw in study hall. She recreated the battle at the end of Endgame, which remains the most important event in Phase 4. Nearly every movie or show has been dealing with the repercussions of that film. And rightly so. Several billion people suddenly rematerialized. It's a big deal. A few details that we noticed in this opening. Thor has his beard and gut, just like in Endgame. Steve Rogers goes into battle with a shield that has not been broken, which makes me think that the public is unaware that the shield was shattered and that the one that was donated to the Smithsonian is the original shield. Hawkeye is firing thumbtacks while wearing the purple suit from his show, which makes me think that this takes place after the fight at 30 Rock and that the kids really dig his new threads. So Kate Bishop was right. Branding works. We also see Valkyrie, who's probably a little more famous because she's the head of state of Asgard. In this battle against Thanos, you can see that Kamala gave priority placement to female heroes like the Scarlet Witch, Okoye, and Pepper Potts in her rescue armor.
Girls get it done.
We also see this cockatoo, probably a nod to her archenemy in the comics. Who's that? Oh, it's a mutated cockatoo with the brain of Thomas Edison. Okay then. We also see the F-16 that Carol flew in the movie Captain Marvel, and I've been wondering how so many events of these movies are public knowledge in the MCU, like we see here.
She could have taken out Thanos on her own if he hadn't initiated a blitz. I mean, nobody else came close.
Well, I'd argue that Captain Marvel came close.
And now we know it's because Scott Lang interviews the heroes on a podcast called Big Little Me by This Powered Life, a spin on This American Life. Notice another one of her videos is about Ant-Man and the Wasp having a romantic vacation in Paris. Then Kamala says this.
Next week, I'm going to kick off a special 2-part series on why I think Thor is secretly a gamer.
Which he totally is! We saw this in Endgame.
Oh, that's right. Yes, go cry to your father, you little weasel.
Now, I love this opening because it takes the cosmic scale events in Endgame and it places them in a context that regular people can understand. But also it shows that she is an adorkable geek with a vivid imagination, and eventually she'll be able to use her artistic skills and imagination to create badass weapons with her new powers, kind of like Green Lantern. When she goes downstairs, her brother Amir is reciting his dua before breakfast. What's a dua? It's an act of supplication and communication with God. A dua before meals can be different from the other 5 types of daily prayers that Muslims typically practice. How did you know all that? Oh, well, I learned a lot from my friend Srinidhi, but also, before watching this show, I wanted to know more about Kamala Khan's culture. I actually know very little about Islam, so I read this book called Islam by Karen Armstrong. It gives a detailed account about the history and modern culture of the religion. Oh, I bet it took you a long time to read a book like that. Actually, Doug, it took me 15 minutes because I read it with Blinkist. They're the sponsor of this video. With Blinkist, instead of finding the time to read a whole book, I can listen to all of its highlights in just a few minutes. For instance, I also listened to The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. This book actually taught me how to be better at my job because it's all about how human beings have created and related to mythological characters throughout the millennia. And superheroes are our modern day myths. Now, I learned all of these powerful ideas in just 15 minutes. Blinkist is a great way to fit reading into your life because it lets you learn and improve yourself with the tiny cracks of time between your day. They have more than 5,000 titles, including recent bestsellers. I also love The World According to Star Wars, which helps relate the meaning of the saga to our everyday lives. Everything from Shakespeare to How to Raise Your Kids. It's also a great way to try out a book and see if you want to listen to the whole audiobook. Right now, Blinkist has a special offer just for our audience. Click the link in the description to start your free 7-day trial with Blinkist and get 25% off a premium membership. Now back to the Easter eggs. When Kamala takes her driving test, I love the crash zoom on her foot when she slams the gas. It's a moment that's very comic booky and shows exactly how she sees herself in that moment, like a superhero. The title song is Tamil's song O Namba from the movie Linga. It's basically a motivational song to encourage people to take every opportunity. It's the whole thesis of Kamala's character in this show. Fantasize, take the opportunities you see, find your passion, and make it your purpose. As her family drives her home, she looks out across the Hudson at Manhattan. And a lot of you might think that this is the former Avengers Tower, but it's not. That's a real building in Hudson Yards that just looks like Avengers Tower. Avengers Tower should be right here, but it's not. They didn't put it in the skyline. There's an important detail here when her mom says,
"These are my genetics. I mean, I come from a long line of fantasizing unrealistic daydreamers. My mother was one."
This is a clue about the origin of her powers. It seems like Kamala's grandmother was a superhero, and that the women in her family can wear this band and get powers from it. But her mother rejected this lifestyle to live a more normal life. As she enters her school, we see this plaque, giving the names of comic book writers, pencilers, inkers, editors, and colors who worked on Ms. Marvel and Captain Marvel. In particular, G. Willow Wilson created the character, along with penciler Adrian Alphona, and Ian Herring gave the book this unique, grounded color palette that really set it apart from any other superhero book being put out at that time. Zoe says she likes Kamala's necklace, which is her name in Arabic. Now, in Arabic, Kamal means perfection. Her parents named her this because they didn't think they could conceive another child. She also wears a protective evil eye necklace. All throughout her day, we keep getting glimpses of how she sees the world through her fantasy lens, like how the drawing of her teacher is animated. Also notice that her shirt has an old school Carol, Wasp, and Valkyrie in a Beyonce formation. Her teacher quotes this song from Mulan.
Who is that girl I see?
And this song, of course, is about Mulan trying to find her place in the world. There's one self that her family wants her to be, and there's another self that she wants to be, the warrior. And you can draw parallels here with Kamala Khan and her family wanting her to be a proper lady, and her dreams of wanting to be a superhero. And I also love the comic panel visualization showing her divided life right here. Then she goes to see Bruno at the Circle Q, the bodega where he worked in the comics. She mentions that her mom is like a certain Sith Lord.
Can we stop acting like your mom is Darth Vader?
But remember, Vader was Luke's big, mean, scary parent, but it turned out that he had a heart of gold and he cared about his kid. This line might foreshadow what's to come later in the season. As she and Bruno ride her bikes, the murals of Jersey City come alive as variants of Captain Marvel, like this Panther wearing a Black Panther mask, Iron Man, Doctor Strange with his multiple arms like we saw in Infinity War, and Valkyrie eventually riding a sloth. That's Kamala's favorite animal. We also get nods to Disney princesses and Marvel zombies. Now, all of these references are important because they tell us that she inhabits the same pop culture landscape that we do. And because we consume and enjoy the same media, we feel a connection to her. It's like she's a potential friend. Her grandmother sent her a package that probably contains her old superhero suit along with this bangle. Now, bangles are common for Desi women to wear at important dress functions, and they're often passed down throughout the generations. These look an awful lot like the quantum bands. In the comics, these are worn by the hero Quasar. They were given to him by a cosmic entity named Eon, who is a big space tree face with an eye growing out of his head. The bands are given to people who will use them to protect the cosmos. They basically manipulate different kinds of energy, but here they seem to manipulate energy and create objects, much more like a Green Lantern's power ring. There's something about Kamala's DNA that allowed her to activate the bands. Notice that as soon as she touches them, she is subconsciously altering the energy in the room with the flickering of the lights. So this band that gives her powers is probably some sort of ancient cosmic relic, like the 10 rings. It's very cool that it would be connected to her DNA, because this is a nod to how she got her powers in the comics. Basically, she's an Inhuman, which means that her powers were dormant until they were activated by a special space fog called a Terrigen Mist. The scene where she shops with her mom for her brother's wedding is filled with nods to Pakistani culture. The background song is the original Coco Karina by Ahmad Rushdie from the 1966 Urdu language film Arman from the golden age of Pakistani cinema. It's like the embodiment of Pakistani pride. This sign means Women's March or Work. The names J. Vash, J. Haddad, and H. Avant on the posters are the names of the artists in the series art and art direction departments. And the children's poster here has the subtitle, "Some heroes come in small packages." Aw, Kamala is a small girl. There's also Indian flag collars on his fingers. This is all showing that Kamala is more of a blend between Western and Pakistani culture, whereas she's surrounded by a community with traditional ideologies, which leads to the main obstacle in this episode. The big obstacle in this episode is that she wants to go to AvengerCon, but her parents won't let her, which makes me really want to see how she can handle being an actual superhero in a very strict house. I love how they visualized her and Bruno texting, as the messages are part of the environment, because, you know, when you're walking and texting, you're aware of both the messages and your environment simultaneously. So this effect is another brilliant way of putting us into the characters' minds. Bruno has a poster of Nikola Tesla on his wall because Tesla was an inventor, but also because he was a rival to Thomas Edison, who was their main adversary in the comics. Later, we'll even see Edison Electric on a sign on Bruno's roof. This poster on her wall is from the cover of Captain Marvel #5 by Terry Dodson. The scene where she's looking at herself in the mirror wearing her Captain Marvel costume is crucial for understanding this character. This is so important that, like, most people wouldn't necessarily understand, but it's absolutely crucial to the culture of dressing to most Asian women. Yes, she is fully covered, not wearing a skirt or showing her arms, fine, but she reaches to see the tightness of her pants and is unhappy because it doesn't fit loose enough for the standards of typical families. That alone would have been cool to see, but they went the extra mile of showing her covering her pelvic area with a scarf because of the shortness of the top, and it doesn't cover the pelvic area that her pants already do. A lot of people or shows overlook this detail, but in strict Desi culture, it's like the factor that family sees you as being naked or not naked. A lot of salware kameez have the tops go down somewhere to the knees, while you wear matching pants or leggings underneath. And this whole scene is also a mirror to when her mother dresses her in a clothing store. Her mother is dressing her up as she wants her to be, but this is not how Kamala sees herself. And man, the scene where her parents try to accept her hobby by making Hulk costumes and her dad even paints himself green, it was just so heartbreaking, man. I felt bad for everyone involved. You're not going. She and Bruno talk about, Bruno. That's enough. No more of that. Not for the rest of the show. She and Bruno talk about the time she fell in the Hudson River, and actually in the comics, when she first got her powers, she saved another girl, Zoe, when she fell in the river. And Kamala also saved Zoe's life in this episode. Her school's mascot is the Bengals, Houday, named after the Bengal tiger, and that subspecies of tiger originated from Southern Asia, including Pakistan, where Kamala's family is from. And then we get to the AvengerCon. There are lots of Easter eggs here, and this will take a while. You can do this, Ryan. This is what you were made for. The con takes place at Camp Lehigh, where Steve Rogers trained and was later converted to the first headquarters for the SSR, later converted into a storage house for a Nazi AI, and then later converted into a pile of rubble. Now it's a convention center. There are several women cosplaying as the backup singer and dancers from Cap's USO show, including here on the bus, where we also see a short-haired Thor with Stormbreaker. In the photos, Bruno is cosplaying as Tony Stark with the Iron Gauntlet. There's an Ant-Man, a Mini-Mate Rocket, and another Captain Marvel, Vision, Winter Soldier Suit Captain America, your mom, Black Panther, and Dora Milaje, Nick Fury. Then this whole dream sequence where Kamala is crowned queen of the con, and a sequence very much like when Carrie becomes prom queen in Brian De Palma's Carrie. And just like in Carrie, the whole event goes wrong when the woman on stage manifests her superpowers. And then back to reality, she goes to the attic and finds her handmade Captain America comic book, which makes sense because when she was a little kid, there weren't that many active superheroes, but she would have still remembered the old Captain America movie serials. Also, apparently she thought this comic book was worth $10. Now, outside the con, they're playing the Star-Spangled Man with a Plan from First Avenger, and you have to enter through the face of Hulk. Outside, we see Thor, Mantis, Drax, a statue of Captain America, and this guy dressed as a Wakandan warrior. Inside, there's a stand for Natasha, and we can see a display of things the Hulk smashed. Later, we can see this includes a refrigerator with his handprint on it, and this might even be the taxi that he smashes here. We can see a Thor with armor made from CDs pinned to his chest, and Dora Milaje here. There's a display for the realm of Asgard, and later we'll see that you can book an Asgardian tour here. We've already seen hints of Asgard's thriving tourist trade in the trailers for Thor: Love and Thunder. In the con, we get a better look at the Infinity War Thor, followed by Doctor Strange playing guitar, and the Iron Lady dancers from Iron Man 2. Lots of Viking helmets to celebrate Thor's Norse heritage, and a character of Steve Rogers that says "You're welcome," prominently featuring America's ass.
That is America's ass.
Right here there is a pride flag draped over what looks like a Wakandan shield. Toys and helmets from Ant-Man and the Wasp. More Star-Spangled Man with the Plan dancers alongside a Wanda and Cap in cosplay. And a tribute wall to those we lost, which includes Tony and Natasha, which is great since she never got a funeral. The writer for this episode, Bisha K. Ali, tweeted that she went off in the writer's room about Natasha to put a Natasha tribute wall in the AvengerCon scene. Then we see a display of Giant Man reenacting this scene from Ant-Man and the Wasp, with Okoye and Drax here, and this actually looks like Big Hero 6 on the shelf. And here we have a Drax selling a documentary series about Peter Quill, very similar to the other documentaries about Tony Stark and Wakanda that Peter scrolled through on the plane in Far From Home. Then Kamala tries on an army helmet like the one Steve Rogers trained in First Avenger, Asgard pride shirt, maybe because Valkyrie is queer, popcorn is being served by a giant ant like we saw in Ant-Man. We also have a replica of the costume Cap wore in Winter Soldier and Cap's signature slogan, "I can do this all day."
I could do this all day.
Now, lots of this merch is Captain America based, which isn't a surprise because Captain America is probably public domain at this point, whereas Stark Industries would still own the rights to all things Iron Man. And we should probably mention that she's wearing a replica of Carol's jacket from Captain Marvel. Then she sees the Carol Danvers display and looks up at her in awe. My favorite part of this scene is how Bruno watches her just so he can see her be this happy. You know, like how everyone else looks at you while you're watching a Marvel movie in the theater. And right here, the Captain Marvel theme plays just for a second. Similar to how the first Avenger theme played in the Smithsonian movie in The Winter Soldier.
A symbol to the nation.
Now in the bathroom, we see a Mini-Mates Captain America just before the episode's big action sequence where Zoe gets hammered by Mjolnir. Afterwards, she does that Gwen, Mary Jane, Hans Gruber slow motion fall when she's caught by Kamala. Her making a giant fist is a nod to her original shape-shifting powers in the comics. Now when she comes home later, her mom says she needs to stop fantasizing.
I wish that you would just focus on you.
Now here her mom means that she should focus on her career, but there's a double meaning to it. Kamala has to stop idolizing and imitating heroes like Carol Danvers and instead focus on becoming her own hero. Now the song from the end credits is Razi from Eva B. She's one of the first female rappers in the Pakistani community. The street art in the credits are all taken from Ms. Marvel comics, and here we can see a Trust a Bro moving van. You know, those bro guys from Hawkeye. And finally, there's a post-credits scene. Did you miss it?
I've never seen powers like that. Whoa. Yeah, bring her in.
That is Agent Cleary from Spider-Man No Way Home, and he is an agent of damage control. That's the agency that's in charge of cleaning up after superhero battles from the comics, and that first appeared here in Homecoming.
Joint venture between Stark Industries and the federal government, the Department of Damage Control.
And it looks like now they're in charge of policing most superhuman activity. Well, that's all the Easter eggs we found, but if you found any, let me know in the comments below, or you can @ me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, be sure to subscribe and smash that bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.